This is a podcast from the Bugle.
If you go into the woods today, prepare for a big surprise. If you go into the woods today, you'd better go in disguise. For every bear that ever there was is gathered there for certain, because today's the day the teddy bears listen to the Gargle. Hello, this is the Gargle, the sonic glossy magazine to the Bugle's audio newspaper for a visual world. I am your host, Alice Fraser, and your guest editors for this week's edition of the magazine are Alison Spittle.
Pew, 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 pew.
That was less intense mouth noises than you normally bring.
Well, I was doing quite intense hand noises because I hear that we're going to be on YouTube. So bringing the vocals back, putting a bit of hand stuff in, you know, as usual.
As usual. I feel like you're adding that extra dimensionality of hand gestures that make your comedy so well known. Handsy Spittle, they call you.
They do. I'm going to get cancelled one day.
And Joz Norris.
Hello.
Joz Norris, welcome back.
I panicked while you were talking about hand stuff, and I was trying to think of how to embellish my hello eventually, and I just went for the first thing that popped into my head, so I hope it was okay.
It was totally very acceptable, totally
Yeah, it was fine. It was fine, I thought.
I mean, we can workshop it later if
Yeah,
you like.
yeah, we can do that.
I give it 2 thumbs up, you know.
Thanks. Oh, great.
Oh, excellent. Before we link pinkies and plunge our hands into the top stories of this week, let's have a look at the front cover. The front cover this week is May Musk, mother of Elon, who this week claimed online to have cancelled the projected cage match between her son Elon Musk and his frenemy nemesis, Mark Zuckerberg. They were planning to do a cage match, which, you know, I don't know how I would have felt about it, but we know how May Musk felt about it. She did not want her son in a hexagon or an octagon punching.
No. Her boy.
A man significantly younger and fitter than himself. Yeah. So she pulled the plug, or she is the delicate veil over which that has been pulled over the negotiations in which they both agreed to pull the plug. Because I feel like, who wins that cage match?
Unless they both kill each other and then the world.
Yeah.
But I think as well, it just sounds like the least hardest thing of like, I would have fought you, but my mum has intervened.
Yeah.
You know, it feels very 8 years old at the local youth club.
Well, I feel like the match itself feels very 8-year-old, so it's appropriate that Mummy has stepped in and prevented it from happening.
Were they really going to do it? They were like hiring a cage and stuff. It wasn't like a bit.
Oh, wow.
Because that's mad if they were going to do it.
I'm pretty sure they have people to hire cages for.
Yeah, they could. They've got the resources. Yeah, I bet he got his mum onto it. He was like, well, I can't pull out of this, but it'll look sweet.
They were allegedly planning on doing it at the Vegas Octagon, and the UFC president Dana White was dead serious about the potential match because I assume he would have been able to sell many, many, many millions of dollars worth of tickets, both from people who like Elon. This is the thing, as an entertainment spectacle, people who like Elon Musk and or Mark Zuckerberg, and people who hate Mark Zuckerberg and or Elon Musk would have really been in for it. So.
Are there people who are indifferent to either of them? I don't think there are. I think that's everyone on the planet either likes or dislikes them, right?
His mother, their mothers.
Oh yeah, they're indifferent.
Their fathers as well. Hence the billionaire status.
And the satirical cartoon this week is a picture of a cricketer in whites and a water polo player in Speedos. And the headline of the satirical cartoon is Sex in Sport. The subheadline is How Sexy Should Athletes Be Allowed to Be? The second subheadline is Yes, this is the real culture war. Should professional athletes be allowed to be bangable, and how? This is about, you know, did you see that Lance Armstrong is launching a series about whether trans people taking hormones should be allowed to compete in sport?
Yeah, I feel like it's like Lance is like, now it's my time to shine, and everybody's just been dunking on him this past week. He's been dunked harder than...
Well, of all the people who should have opinions on the use of hormones in sport,
yeah,
he is either the most or the least qualified. But certainly on the realm of fairness in sport, he's probably the least qualified. our top story this week is the Dancy Lagarde reader has been funded. So it's a real book that's going to happen. That's a real thing. If you want to purchase a copy pre-sale of the Dancy Lagarde reader, you can do that. If you go to unbound.com and search in their bar for the Dancy Lagarde reader or Alice Fraser or Dancy Lagarde or any combination of those words, you can support the project. You can buy your own copy in a pre-sale. It is definitely going to happen. We are now more than 120% funded. So, if you want a copy, go there and do that. Your next top story, that's actual human news, is social psychology gaming news. This is the news that male gamers increase their effort when competing against female characters, even if the characters are being played by gamers who are men. Which is an interesting social psychological fact and very much borne out by the fact that when my brother invited his friends around for N64 tournaments and we played GoldenEye, they would all just back my player, Xenia, on a top into the corner and shoot her until she was dead. So
she had quite powerful thighs, though. I understand they had to get rid of that threat. It's
They don't tell you that the powerful thighs are no protection against bullets.
Did they put the thighs into the game? Was that like a feature? If you played as her, could you use the thighs? Or did they not think about that?
Yeah, it's been such a long time since I've played that game.
I never played it. I never got around to it. I wasn't allowed. It was very violent.
They've utilised the thighs or the tits. You know what I mean? If you flash James Bond and then killed him. It's this is a story that kind of I don't think I've thought about it before, but you ever read a kind of pop psychological story and you're like, that checks out. And so that dudes absolutely pummel and destroy characters that are women. And I think it comes from the idea of maybe heterosexual men trying to show that they are tough and that they can provide by doing as well on Call of Duty as possible. I think there's probably there's going to be many kind of meet cute stories where children ask their parents, "Oh, how did you meet?" And your father absolutely dominated me on Crash Bandicoot, and I just knew he was the one.
It made me think of those nature documentaries where they talk about birds that do like elaborate courtship rituals. Like, you've got like the bowerbird and then it builds like a beautiful nest out of like glass beads and things. And I was thinking, like, what kind of species that might emerge out of the ashes of like humans, if there's a future society that looks back on us and makes a documentary about us and then goes, and then the male has to like select his character out of a warrior or a cleric or a sorcerer or something, and then he absolutely bashes the shit out of the female players, and she's just really impressed by that. She thinks it just made me sad. It just made me think, like, this doesn't look good in history.
Yeah, like to be looking at the person going, her glands are getting warm every time he does well in
casts a high-ranking spell.
Yeah,
it doesn't really compete with a single red rose left on the doorstep.
No, but I do have to admit, when I was younger, I think I was about 11. There was this boy that was really good at Snake. Like, he would play on the Nokia 3210. And I did fancy him. And I think it was because, well, I have very low self-esteem, number one. But also because he had an interest in a hobby that he loved. And so I can kind of... I mean, I am talking about this from such a heteronormative point of view. That I think, the guys dominate the girls, unless they're like misogynists. They could be both, can't they? You could be attracted to women and a misogynist, can't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty sure you can. I have a joke in my show where I say, who here likes women? And then I pause and I say, who here wants to bang women? And it's a slightly different demographic.
Wow. Snake's kind of different because Snake's not hurting anyone, Like, Snake's such a self-contained world. He's just sort of master of his own kingdom, that kid. You get really good at Snake and then
himself.
you just, yeah.
Just like the men who play video games quite a lot. They're actually only hurting themselves. It's fine.
I think the research is really interesting. Women perform better when they actively concealed their gender, but when women play, it doesn't matter what gender they're playing against. It doesn't affect their performances. But men get a boost in performance when they're competing against women because of their need to impress and or destroy.
Why not both?
It also said that one of the flaws in this study was that all the data was self-reported, and also most of it was talking about effort rather than necessarily like whether they did better. So I also kind of imagine that like they might have still done really badly and lost, but what they did do with then all of them self-reported is going, oh no, but I tried really hard. I put loads of effort into it, I promise. So they might have been shit, but it made them feel more self-conscious about being shit, possibly. I was really trying.
Your ad section now, because you can't be what you can't buy. Or can you? If what you want to be is in this ad section, you can buy an ad here in this ad space. If you're the kind of person that has things or concepts to sell and wants people to buy those things, if you've dreamed of having me read an ad for one of your real products and services, I guess, on this illustrious program, email us at hellobuglers@thebuglepodcast.com. And this episode of the podcast is brought to you by the zebra, the angriest, most beautiful horse-adjacent decorative pet choice. A live zebra is the home decor for those who like a challenge but don't like not getting kicked in the head. Zebras. And do you walk down the street on your footsticks worrying about stuff? Are you often annoyed by noises you didn't invite into your ear holes? Are you tired of being fully present in your body while doing the laundry? Try podcasts. Podcasts, the way to make talking happen inside your head and with strangers. Podcasts, the friends you've never made. Did you know the manufacturing process for a 32 megabyte computer memory chip takes close to 32 litres of water? The output for the average factory in this industry is close to 2 million integrated circuits. That level of production requires over 20 million gallons of water every single month. Think about that the next time you drink half a glass of water. Half a glass of water. Meaningless on an industrial scale. Now it's time for pet news. This is the news that billionaires have had to take down an ad for a pet nanny because they were swamped with applications, which means that they were offering $127,000 a year pet nanny role. Joz Norris, you've seen a pet before. Can you unpack this story?
Yeah, I've seen these guys. My favourite thing about this story is they got 400. The agency said that they'd never had an advert for a dog nanny before, so it doesn't exist as a job. It's not really a thing. And then after they put up this advert, because of the fee attached to it, they had 400 applications. It's a terrible job. Everything about the job makes it sound dreadful. They said you get 6 weeks holiday, but you might not get that, because your duty is always to the dogs. So if ever you need to do anything, you need to drop your private life and just do that. And I was thinking, within the 400 people that apply, you're obviously going to get a lot of kind of chances in there that are just like, oh, I want the money. But presumably there'll also be people in there who are like top experts on animal care. But then there's a bit in the ad where I think the family have really kind of muddied the waters for what they're looking for. Because there's a bit where they say the ideal candidate would be perfect, would be able to blend in perfectly into the background and then pop out when required. So they also want somebody to have developed like the skills of a master of disguise. I was kind of picturing that, like, it's obviously like billionaires that are putting this job out there. So you go around and like maybe there's a hallway lined with suits of armor and you kind of go, wow, these guys are cool. And then a dog runs out and is sick, and then one of the suits of armor like leaps into life and there's a dog nanny in there. Or also in a haunted house, you have the paintings with the spooky eyes and they're kind of looking out through the eyes.
Yes.
I imagined maybe that as well, but you're sort of stationed behind that. So you really have to kind of make your entire life secondary to this job. And I can imagine that in the interview, you'd impress them with all your kind of list of CV stuff about how many animals you've looked after. And then they'll ask you, like, are you a master of disguise? And you go, oh, no, because at no point did I think that I would need to become a master of disguise in order to get this job. I just think they're making problems for themselves that will make it harder to get the candidate they want.
Well, also they're looking for an applicant who has the ability to handle sensitive information with the utmost discretion and confidentiality.
Yeah, which doesn't sound great.
I know. I got a feeling like any job for a billionaire, and you're getting paid over 100 grand. There's going to be some human rights violations in there.
Yeah, there's some hush money in there.
There is some absolute hush money. A dog shitting on a 10,000 quid rug is not the worst thing you're going to see during that job. You're going to need some counselling after. I feel like the wage that they're giving you is definitely to cover your aftercare after dealing with these dogs. I have rich friends, and I've looked after cats for my friends. Now these cats, they're expensive cats. They're hypoallergenic. They also shit into a machine, and I've looked it up. The machine costs.
What?
Yeah.
What, they just follow the Roomba around, or...
It's not, imagine a Roomba. That would be the most decrepit lifestyle for any Roomba, just following a cat. Like, if that was a Henry the Hoover, it would have a very sad face on it. Like, just following that cat around, sucking up its poo. But, no, there's machines. I've seen 2 of them for 2 of my mates, separate mates, and it's kind of like, what's it shaped like? It's shaped like a ball, like an eyeball. And the cat goes into the eyeball and then poos into it, walks out, and it rotates and kind of sloshes the crap into this like sand pit underneath. It's ever so strange. So I've looked after cats for my mates, love doing it. But I can tell you now, I get very anxious because those cats are expensive, and it's like looking at money that can move and throw itself under a lorry. You know what I mean? And you're like, no.
I feel like my first question, if I were an applicant for this job, is what happened to the last dog nanny?
Yes, what did happen to the... And also, it's so much money. And these are only 2 dogs. These are in the 1% of dogs. Like, with that money, I think those billionaires could buy every stray dog in the country a Dentastix. Do you know what I mean? Give them a little treat. Why is it only two dogs? And what kind of dogs are these?
Yeah.
The breed is not specified.
Yeah, they've refused to comment on the breed.
On the breed?
Yeah, they were asked, and it said they've not responded to requests
Jurassic
for comment.
Park 8.
Yeah, they go, oh, by the way, they're massive and they're f***ing horrible. Hope that's okay.
I bet these whatever dogs they are, I bet they're getting those, those little individual foil dog foods that slip out like a frube. Like, that's what they're having. Or it could be, imagine if it's 2 people just dressed as dogs. Maybe that's why they want discretion. Maybe you have to look after.
You reckon it is just the billionaires?
I reckon it's 2 mates of the billionaires, Bill and Bob, and they go round of Leeds, and that's why you need your discretion. Because they're 2 humans. That's my suspicion.
I'm sorry to deflate your balloon, but there are people who would pay for that job. And now it's time for your reviews section. As you know, each week we ask our guest editors to bring something to review out of 5 stars. Joz, what have you brought in for us this week?
I'm reviewing a new movie that I've seen recently. I'm reviewing the latest Legacy sequel that's coming out. I've written my review here, so here we go. We were delighted by the further adventures of an elderly Han Solo in The Force Awakens. We were thrilled by the further adventures of an elderly Tom Cruise in Top Gun Maverick. Now, I've been lucky enough to watch an early screening of the next belated Legacy sequel to a beloved movie property, and that's Forrest Gump 2. Which is coming out at some point in the future. In 1994, American values and good old-fashioned conservative American patriotism were assumed to be more or less equivalent to broader moral values like kindness and dignity and love. So we all adored Tom Hanks's beautiful performance as the all-American dope with the heart of gold, who just sort of moved through the world with nothing other than love for his country and his immediate nuclear family. In 2023, then, we're all going to love watching an increasingly decrepit and intolerant Gump just blundering through the 90s and the noughties and the 10s, clumsily inserted into archive footage and inadvertently causing 9/11, the global financial crash, Brexit and the rise of Trump, but all in the name of love and kindness. At one point he says, "Mama always used to say that life was like a box of chocolates, but you probably can't say that anymore," he grumbles in one scene, before seeing something that he doesn't like or recognise on telly and complaining about how woke everything's become these days. Also, if you don't cry at the gratuitous scene featuring Jenny's return as a Force ghost, then you must have a heart of stone. And in Forrest Gump 2, Gump might not always say the right thing, but at least his heart is in the right place. I give it 5 stars out of 5, and I do recommend that everyone sticks around for the post-credit scene as well, where Lieutenant Dan returns to recruit Forrest into the Avengers. There's going to be a really exciting kind of crossover event coming up, I think. It's really great. It might get shelved. It might not come out. So if you don't hear about it, that's probably why. But I loved it. I thought it was really great.
How do you think Forrest Gump would deal with the ousting of Nasty Nick from Big Brother 1?
Oh, I think it would have broken his heart.
It would have, yeah.
I think
the
that
trust
would have been
in the nation.
Alison Spittle, what have you brought in for us this week?
I got some art. So I was at a gig last night, and this lady called Lou Blakeway, did a painting of me.
Oh,
I don't want
wow.
to take it out of the bubble wrap because I quite like it like that. I think I'd like to keep it with the bubble wrap on. But I think I'd like to review the concept of me being an art. I love it. People that I've been the subject of a lot of people's art. Some of it have been, if I'm being honest with you, quite destroying for my self-esteem. Like if you are an artist and you think it doesn't depict this person in the best light physically, don't show it to them. There's no need. So, but I've been very lucky, and Lee Blakeway made a painting of me. I'm going to give her 5 stars out of 5. That's pretty cool.
I mean, this is the great thing. Normally, if you or I are in art, it's because it's the art that we're doing on stage.
Yes. Oh, I got to tell you, actually, one time, this is years ago, I was living in this flat, and the only way that you could contact the flat was by the buzzer via the front door. But I got a knock on my actual front door, and I was like, "Who's this?" Because I was like, they're not coming from the street. And it was this little boy, and he was really shy, and his mum was beside him. And it was a little, not a montage, what do they call it? Where you put loads of photos onto a piece of paper.
Collage.
He made a collage of me with my name across it, and it said at the back, because I think I was on TV in Ireland at the time, and it said to my favourite TV presenter. And I was like, "Oh, that's cool, that's very nice." And then his mother was beside him, and she goes, "My husband made that." And then I looked down, and her husband was down the side of the hallway, and I kept looking at the little boy, pretending that he had made the collage, because I didn't want to engage with the husband. But I still have that. My mum has that in her downstairs bathroom. So yeah, so, it was a weird story.
There is a very sad portrait of me that was done for the Archibald Portrait Prize in Australia, where I met the artist at a music festival, and I was really ebullient backstage. And then he said, "Oh, I'd love to paint you for the Archibald," and then he got me for the sitting. But in the meantime, my mum had gone into the palliative care ward.
Beautiful.
So he kept trying to cheer me up so that he could get the mood from me that he wanted, and eventually he had to fold and just be like, "Nope, it's Alice Fraser with a 1,000-yard stare." Just looking real grim.
I'm sorry that I laughed at the word palliative care, but
it is pretty funny in that context. I mean, if you take it purely from his perspective as an artist, what he was looking for was zazzy backstage Alice, and what he got was extremely sad Alice. Now it's time for your space news, and this is the news that a study has discovered exactly how the immune system of astronauts breaks down in space, presumably similarly to the way that toddlers' immune systems immediately break down on contact with daycare. It looks like the moment you get into space, you start to collapse as a physical specimen. Joz Norris, you've meditated on the aching void between the stars before. Can you unpack this story for us?
Yeah, well, I had quite a funny reaction to this story, because I read this article and I was trying to think of, what can I say about this story that's sort of fun and interesting. And basically, the whole article is just a long list of all the ways in which astronauts are sort of Like their immune system falls apart as soon as they get out there. And then there was another thing about like they spread it in pathogens in their urine. So when they're up there, all the other astronauts are going to get it as well. And they're all just going to get sicker and sicker. And it was making me feel quite sad reading it. I was like, this is a bit of a bummer, this one. So I was trying to work out what to do. And then I thought, wait, how many astronauts are there? And I looked it up, and it turns out there are only 600 people have ever been to space. That's it. And there's never more than like 6 at any one time. And then I looked at how many people have ever existed, and it's 117 billion. And then I tried to work out the number of astronauts as a fraction. And then, you know, when the number's so small that it can't be a number anymore, and they have to put the letter E into it? And I don't even know what that means. It just means that it's tiny. So the percentage of people that have ever existed that have actually gone to space is infinitesimally small. So then I started thinking, well, this just doesn't matter very much, you know? Like it's not like they're minors and they're sort of like it's the only job available in a small community and it's essential for society and they have to go down there and they're put in hazardous conditions and then they're underpaid. Like it's just a few people who like decided to go to space. Nobody told them to go to space. They're all quite well paid. And then I started getting angry about it. I was like, these guys aren't key workers. And in lockdown, we weren't like clapping for astronauts outside our houses every day. And then when you think about space, I was like, you look at space, you're like, of course it's bad for you to go to space. If you look out now, like if you're listening to this now and it's night, then look up there and look at the kind of infinite black void and think about like, oh, I wonder if it would be good for me to go up there. Like, of course, it's going to be awful and your body's going to fall apart. So I then got really angry and was like, why do we care that like a few people who have been to space get ill? And then I thought, I'm massively overreacting to this. This is silly. And then after I've been through those sort of extremes of emotion of like extremely sad and then extremely angry about it, I realised actually I just feel quite neutrally about the whole story. I don't really have a stance on it, I don't think.
It's strange because like just you were talking about the kind of uselessness of astronauts.
Yeah.
And then there's a part of me that was thinking, have you not seen the film Armageddon? We will be relying on these. You're right.
But they're not astronauts. They're drillers.
That's true, but I mean the astronauts.
They don't even use the astronauts in that film.
Do you know what? You're right. Actually,
we don't need them. We really don't need them.
Well, and also then think about the fact that the only thing holding our atmosphere in breathing distance of us is the gravitational pull of the Earth, and that we've pulled up so much bore water that's changed the axis of the Earth's spin.
What?
Let that worry you at all?
That sounds bad.
Yeah. It does, but luckily I'm not educated enough to know exactly how bad and in what way bad. It just sounds vaguely bad. So I can just worry about it in an amorphous way rather than a really specific and obsessive way.
The more I thought about it, I was thinking, like, are they useful, astronauts? What do? They go to the moon, which is sort of like, meh. And then maybe they do some stuff on satellites, which I guess is quite good.
They inspire youth.
That's true.
I met a astronaut on an Irish TV show. Is it Chris Hadfield? Is that his name?
Oh yeah, he's supposed to be quite good. I've got his book.
And my uncle was backstage, and he was he's quite an outgoing man, and he ran up to Chris and he's like, "Tell me they exist." And Chris just winked at him, and he goes, "That's all I need to know, son. That's all I need to know." So I don't know what that means or what they were communicating, but
fantastic.
And now it's time for fake priest news now. This is the news that a Californian taco chain have been ordered to pay $70,000 in damages, that's American dollars, to employees who were asked to meet with a priest and confess their sins. And it turns out that the priest was not a real priest. Alison Spittle, you understand religion. Please explain this story to me.
I absolutely love this. So this was a company called Taqueria Garibaldi, which at first I thought, wow, biscuit tacos, would love it. It would be a great idea. So this was a company. I mean, if we're going to be frank here, I don't think. Not only did they bring a fake priest in, but I think they're not the best at employee practices. They brought in a fake priest, and I love this. As soon as the confession started, so Maria Parra, an employee of Taqueria Garibaldi, said, as soon as the confession started, I found the conversation to be strange and unlike normal confessions, where I would tell a priest about the sins I wanted to confess. The employee added that the priest was only interested in hearing of sins committed on the job. And it's like, so, like, you know, the sins, like, this is a Catholic religion. I was a Catholic. You know, the normal kind of sins you get: disrespecting your parents, that's a big one, lying, and taking the Lord's name in vain. And there's not much about labour laws in the Ten Commandments. There's not much of that, you know, thou shalt not go to the toilet on the boss's time, you know, go during your breaks or whatever. It just seems like these are bad practices. Also, like, I've heard of companies putting on free pizza days, dress down Fridays, bringing in a priest. It just made me question this workplace kind of ethos and environment.
Well, you're right to question it. The Department of Labour only uncovered the fake priest when they were in the midst of investigating a claim about unpaid wages. So this taqueria is now going to pay not only $70,000 in damages for the priest trick, but also $70,000 in back pay to the employees and $5,000 in civil money penalties to the Department of Labour due to the willful nature of their violations. When you've got an extra penalty for just being a shit,
yes,
that's $5,000 for just being a shit there. In that, that's got a sting, man. Joz?
I quite liked the idea. Like, obviously, in this specific instance, this has been done by a crook as like a pretext to dock his workers' pay and to be like, oh, well, I found out about this thing that you did on your lunch break, so now I'm not going to pay you. So this guy's a piece of shit. But I was thinking there's something quite fun about the idea of a priest coming in and getting out all the kind of workplace sins. Like, I think if you used it not as a kind of pretext for punishment, but as a reward of, like, it's been a stressful week, you know, everyone's got wound up by little things everyone else has done, let's get the priest in. And then we all go in one-on-one. We all kind of vent your frustrations. You get your sins about, like, oh, but then I did this, so that's not good. Like, I've had jobs where I think if there was a priest that came in once a week, I think I'd now be a Christian. I'd be quite a devout Christian if that had, even if the priest was fake.
What do you mean, like brand awareness?
Or... Yeah.
There is a part of me that looks at it and goes, like, how would you not know that this priest was fake? But then, you know, as a Catholic, I know that the Catholic clergy have always been on the side of big capitalism and stuff. The Catholic Church have never picked the right side in any of the look at World War II. You know, they're not the best. They're always on the side of the oppressor. And sorry to get ranted. They're very, you know, there's aspects of it that I like. Love the communion, that was tasty. But the idea as well of, like, when you said, Joz, you know, the Catholic Church and reward and not punishment. I was like, that's not how it works at all. It doesn't really no. It's all punishment, baby. That's the way we like it. You know?
The reward is slightly less punishment.
Yes.
All right, that brings us to the end of today's show. I'm flipping through the ad section at the back of the magazine. We have the Unbound.com Dancy Lagarde reader still funding if you want pre-sales for the book that is now definitely 100% going to happen. Joz Norris, have you got anything to plug?
I'm recording my 2 most recent live shows in the middle of July for Go Faster Strike, which is a great website that sells comedy downloads, DVDs and things. So it's a whole day of shows. I'm doing my 2 shows in the middle, but also John Luke Roberts is doing his last show, which is brilliant. Sean Morley and Benjamin Olborough are doing a very weird thing about Terry Wogan trying to escape from hell. So it's 4 days of really great shows. You can either buy for individual shows or buy an all-day ticket. So if you go on my Twitter, there should be a ticket link for that. We're recording them at the Moth Club on the 16th of July. Come along if you like.
I will come along. I'm very excited about it.
I meant listeners, but that's really kind. Thanks.
And Alison Spittle, have you got anything to plug?
Oh, I got a big plug, baby. It's the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, 1:25 every day at the Hive One with Monkey Barrel. I'm going to be doing a show called Soup. I'm doing some whips in the run up to that in July. But the big plug is Soup. I've made some tote bags. I'm going to sell them. I hope that I haven't bought too many tote bags. I may financially destroy myself with these tote bags. And come along and see me. Go to Alison Spittle on Instagram, and there's a lovely link tree there, and that's where you'll find all of the information.
And big thanks to both of our guest editors for this week's magazine, Alison Spittle and Joz Norris, as well as thanks to our roving reporters, C Lips and VB, who sent in the gaming, dog nanny and fake priest stories respectively. I'm Alice Fraser. You can find me online at patreon.com/Alice Fraser, where I do a weekly writers meeting and workshop if you want to write with me, as well as a bunch of other things. Patreon.com/Alice Fraser is the place to go. This is a Bugle podcast and Alice Fraser production. Your editor is Ped Hunter. Your executive producer is Chris Skinner. I'll talk to you again next week.
You can listen to other programmes from The Bugle, including The Bugle, Catharsis, Tiny Revolutions, Top Stories and The Gargle, wherever you find your podcasts.